Hey everybody, let's talk about some bold trends that I'm predicting will happen in 2025. Stay tuned. Tim Weigel here, Watson Realty, and today we're going to talk about my 5 bold predictions going into 2025 that's going to change the real estate market. So let me share my screen here with y'all and we'll get this show started. So, all right. So 2025 real estate predictions, bold trends that will change the market. Now, I don't know if any of you know this or realize this, but in the last 6 months of 2024, it's been a very interesting real estate market. And a lot of that is because our market is shifting. And now I'm going to talk about some of these trends that I think could happen. So fingers crossed that I'm correct on some of them. Maybe I'm not, because the one thing I can tell you is the real estate market is as unpredictable as it's ever been. So now, what qualifies me to even come up with any of these trends? Well, I started my real estate career back in 2014. So I'm going into my 11th year. Feels like yesterday, but I got the gray hairs that say otherwise. To date, I've done somewhere over 250 transactions. I've done over $60 million in production for my sales. Uh, Typically, I'm doing about 55 to 45% listings to buyers. So I got a good array of both dealing with buyers and dealing with sellers. I've worked with anyone from first-time home buyers to investors and everyone in between. And then also on top of that, I'm involved in the community, I'm involved in local chamber of commerce, I'm involved in local schools, I'm involved in local HOAs. And what that does is help keep my pulse on the finger of the market, or my finger on the pulse of the market. I know. 2024, are we done yet? Almost. So, but with all this, it helps me give a unique perspective to what's truly going on in our market. Now, my first prediction is I think in 2025, Orlando area will sell more homes. In 2024, we've actually pretty much across the board sold less homes in these areas than we did in 2023. And there's many reasons why. Uh, it was an election year last year. We had ridiculous high interest rates that we're not used to because we've been spoiled in the 4s and 5s and even 3s. So there's lots of things that have kept people out there. Those that got the low interest rates back in 2020, 2021, 2022, they ain't leaving. They don't want to sell their home unless they have to. And then there's some, of course, I mean, regardless of those interest rates, people still have to move. So people are still going to sell, people are still going to buy. It was just at a lower rate. And as you can tell, for the most part, most markets were off by about 100 sales from the year previously. So, and I'm predicting that in 2025, most of these cities will have an increase above what they did in 2023. Definitely an increase over what 2024 did. But I think that it's going to be up and up because I think a lot more people are going to want to be moving. I just don't see our home sales being as stagnant as they were in 2024. So, and some of these other things on this list is going to help with those, driving those numbers. This one in particularly, I'm probably one of the few that will say this, but I think the interest rates could dip into some low 4s, I mean high 4s earlier this year. I mean, we were dipping down to high 5s and low 6s recently, but we're still a little bit kind of wonky. And there's many reasons why I think we could do this. One is I think with the new administration taking over in January, that it's going to build a lot of consumer confidence. Whether there's reasons to be confident or not, time will tell. But I do think initially a lot of people are going to feel market's going to swing in their favor, and they want to make sure that they get in on those rates that could come down. And I think it's going to adjust a little bit. Also, recently, the inflation data has been looking a little flat. So that's good. It's not really increasing a lot, staying put or close to. which is good. And then jobs reports have also been kind of steady at record lows. So I think with all that going on, and then what the administration's talk with the economy, if it does actually happen, of bringing more jobs back into America, I think some of those numbers can go down. And I also think that probably one of the best pieces of advice when it comes down to the economy over the new administration, which this has absolutely nothing to do with politics, but which anyone in politics knows, most politicians have a little bit of an ego, including the current administration and the future administration. Both have egos. And the biggest ego for this upcoming one is he takes pride in the economy. So because of that, he would do whatever is possible to make the economic figures look great. And I think that's what's going to happen because, I mean, prior to the pandemic, our numbers were looking good in the first go around. So I think because of that, interest rates is really like the rudder that drives the economy. The lower the interest rates, the more businesses that'll happen, pushing real estate sales, pushing more spending in the market. I mean, it's a win-win. So I think that's going to happen. Third prediction I have is increased services in the real estate industry. And kind of what I mean by this is, so as many of you might know, the Department of Justice has challenged the industry regarding compensation. They've changed the ways that we do things regarding promoting compensation, how realtors get paid, trying to decouple from sellers paying for buyers and sellers to where they're only responsible to pay for sellers, and buyers might have to pick up the tab, which technically could impact home sales as well. But I think it also challenges the realtors because, you know, there's not the way that we do business anymore. It's not the same old, same old. So you're going to see some realtors that are going to have to find a way to really step up their services, because when you're talking to a seller, you're talking to a buyer, and you're justifying why they should pay your amount, which, trust me, there's a lot of things that everyone doesn't see that a realtor does behind closed doors of what justifies their number. It's all going to be, though, about what can you prove to me that you do. So therefore, client services, how you communicate with your customers, the type of marketing you do, the type of work you do, the effort that you put in there. I mean, it's all going to come into play. And I think that what you're going to see is you're going to see a big divide in realtors from the haves and the have-nots. A lot at the top are going to get more services because they're going to work harder to provide the service that consumers want. Which of those at the top are also probably not going to get challenged as much about getting paid less of commission because they're showing their value. And that value is what's going to bring them home. So I do think that we're going to see that take another step forward in 2025. We've already started to see it a little bit in the last half of the year. But you know, the last half of the year was also a lot of focus on what are we supposed to do, because it seemed like no one knew what we were doing, and forms kept changing by the week of, oh, this is what's now approved. So now that we're getting a little bit through that confusion, I think it's really going to be stepping it up and time to really put the rubber to this asphalt or floor and get going. And I think you're going to see this services being increased. Now, I also think that we're going to see an increase in distress sales. Now, distress sales, most people think financial trouble, foreclosures, short sale. No, that's not necessarily what I mean. First off, a lot of people that might be in those situations, they got enough equity in their house that they could sell it and make money and be fine. But I also think you're going to see some distressed sales from we got aging baby boomers that are having health issues, and a lot of Gen X's and millennials are now in the position where they got to take care of their parents or do more for their parents. I think that's going to be a big one on there. And the aging baby boomers, like they're called the baby boomer generation because we had a boom. So that means there's an increase of people going up that we've never seen before in our country. And I think that's going to put a strain on the middle class, finding ways to take care of that. And I think that's going to cause some different distress sales that we have to do. It also is going to be where we're probably going to start seeing more houses doing additions for in-law suites, or in-law suites being more popular as we keep going forward, especially with builders, because it's so much easier to sell the parents' house, move them in with you. I also think we're gonna have life changes from one of the parents passing away to where someone's now left by themselves, and trying to figure out those life changes, as well as the life changes of kids going off to school. So now, do we downsize? What do we want to do as a family? And then I do think that because of this inflation the last couple of years and different challenges families have had, I mean, I definitely understand it, is where you're kind of spending more than you need to spend and put you in a particular situation. And I think that's going to cause where there's going to be distress sale, not necessarily foreclosure by the bank, but internal distress sales. And my last prediction is moving towards life. So I think and we've started to see it a little bit, but I think we're going to see a lot more people when they want to move, that they're not necessarily moving to areas they want, but they're moving to what they're offered. So, I mean, close to job, we had during the pandemic, a lot of people move away from the job because they didn't have to work close to the job anymore and they can work from home. Well, I think we're going to see a shift back to moving closer to the job because they don't want to commute and spend all that time in the traffic, because a lot of jobs are now not letting people work from home. I think schools for family has always been a big one. I think that's going to continue being large, especially with Seminole County's ranking for schools. I think that's going to bring a lot more people into Seminole County. And then I think it's really come down to local service and events. Everyone always looks at local governments and like, what do they do? But one thing that they do is they provide services to you. So yes, you might pay a little bit higher in taxes living in the city versus unincorporated counties. But when you live in the city, they offer services to you. For example, speaking of the city of Casselberry, they have their water services, which is well under doing well. They also provide other things that they don't have to do, but helps put the citizens in a happy mood. One is they do a Santa run. They also do events at their local park, food truck events, second Friday of every month. And a lot more cities are doing this. You see that from Longwood. You see stuff from Oviedo, Winter Park. Sometimes they correlate so much that it's even challenging to decide which one do you want to go to. I think some of these event services, like, you know, I'm close enough that I can walk to the event that they do in Casselberry, and I don't have to pay for it unless I want to buy food. Like, I mean, come on, you can't really get away with that. And, these events just really help elevate the quality of life. And it's not anything that you're necessarily paying for, but you are receiving. So I think we're going to see a lot more people going out and looking for more of those services. So I hope you enjoyed my predictions. Feel free, comment if you agree with me, comment if you think there's something else that I missed. I'd love to hear from you. I'd talk to you about it and see what your views are. And if you want to connect with me and discuss even further how this can correlate to your personal needs, then here's a QR code. Reach out, connect with me, and let's figure this out. But I think 2025 has a lot of potential. The real question is, are you going to go out there and grab that potential? Talk to y'all later.